Bum ba bum bum. Wednesday show. Wednesday show. Wednesday show. This is opposite today. Why is it opposite? Wait a minute. I don't know why it's opposite. So today we're opposite day apparently. Maybe it's just on my side. Maybe on your side it's coming through regularly, but right now on my side, I decided to try something new today though. I will admit. So usually I use a different streaming platform for this. For it goes to Facebook and YouTube. I'm still locked out of my Facebook though. So because of that, I figured that we would be going through and doing. Oh, I just thought about a lot of stuff. Holy cow! Wait a minute. We might have to go through and get the other one. Oh, but at the same time, that's kind of cool. I'm trying to figure things out here because I've never done this before on YouTube itself, just on YouTube when we go through this. Because right now, I can't add that to the thing. No. Okay. But David, congratulations on being the newest Florida resident. So that means Jeannie, she beat you to the party. She got here first. This is so weird. Okay, so essentially, this is what's going on for those of you guys who are just joining us. We usually are going live on a thing called StreamYard. So StreamYard pretty much lets me broadcast both on Facebook and YouTube at the same time. I am currently blocked out of Facebook. I got hacked last Tuesday, and it's been a nightmare trying to get back on. So today I was like, you know what? Since I don't need Facebook, why should I use that at second party? And maybe I can just do it myself here on YouTube. But apparently, I cannot. Like I didn't think about the fact that I won't be able to have things pop up on the screen like I usually do. And also, this is kind of weird because it's all backwards right now. So we will go through for tonight, probably, maybe go through tonight in this way. And then I can kind of go through and try to figure things out in the future on how to possibly do it. Oh, maybe, here we go, customization. Can I switch this around? Maybe? No, I cannot. This is, okay, switch around. No, it looks like we are stuck like this forever. I will cancel that. So yeah, so I apologize. I will not be able to put your stuff up like I usually do, and all that other fun stuff. Hey Brent, are you staying safe? I am staying safe. We had a lot of rain today, but there was nothing bad for me. David, I think actually where you're located now, that's closer to where things got hit. Not like it wasn't a terrible hurricane, but are you guys okay? Hopefully you guys are okay. Did you guys have much damage? For me, I just had literally, it was just a little rain and nothing bad, no flooding, no anything massive. I got up this morning and it felt like there was no hurricane. I mean, I went to bed last night and it was raining at that point. I woke up and it was still raining, but it wasn't raining anything like, it wasn't like some torrential downpour or anything. So we'll see. Okay, so what we're going to do tonight is we're going to give you guys the 3 options, as always, to figure out what you would like to have tonight's episode go on. Like I said, usually we will have it so things are popping up on the screen. I do not have the thing today. So we will go through and throw it your way. I will just be reading off the comments on what you guys want to have the topics. I'm going to give you 3 topics, and we're going to start the show. And then after we finish doing the intro, we will go from there. And that's kind of fun too. Look, there's a little heart thing. Oh, wait. We can switch it. So if you guys want to, you can hit that little button on the side. And I'll give a little party symbol now, it looks like. Oh, no, it's still a heart. Oh, that's just my emojis. Haha. Okay, so this is kind of fun. I've not experienced this live thing on YouTube before, so I'm going to be playing around a lot tonight. I apologize in advance. All right, so your 3 topics for tonight that we're going to go on is either 1, we can do an Ask the Expert segment where you guys go through and ask me any and all Disney questions. Number 2, we can continue our Disney 100 series, Or number 3, last week we did a history episode. We did what? The opening of Magic Kingdom. So let's do historic, an old retired attraction episode. So you guys start throwing your votes into the chat room on what topic you guys want to have us do, and then we will go from there. But before we get to that, let's start the 732 episode of the Wednesday Show in 5, 4, 3, 2. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 732nd episode of the Wednesday Show. Today is August 30th, 2023, and I'm your host, as always, Brent Dodge. Hello. By the way, the lady at Publix, every time I go to pick up my sandwich, she thinks I'm saying Brenda, not Brent Dodge, but it's a common mistake. But before we get to that, let's talk about our news for the week. As always, thank you guys for joining us for our Saturday in the Park. If you didn't already know, every single Saturday we do a live broadcast from someplace found throughout the Walt Disney World Resort. You never know where we're going to be coming to you from, but we will always be coming to you live from Disney. We will go every single Saturday right here on my YouTube channel at 1 o'clock Eastern Time, so make sure you join us for the fun over there every single Saturday. Also, speaking of my YouTube channel, which you guys are all on today, it's kind of exciting. Like, it's a bummer that we were hacked from Facebook, but at the same time, I kind of like. Wait, they made you watch ads before they went into the live. I don't know, but thank you. I appreciate the money. As always, we are trying to go up in our YouTube account. If we get more subscribers as we go through here tonight, we will go further into the episode. We are currently at 3,107 subscribers. It's all mirrored today. So maybe it's not mirrored on your side. Is it mirrored on your side? I think it's mirrored on the side. So if we get more subscribers as we go through here, we will go into extra innings. Also, speaking of YouTube, tomorrow we're going to be releasing a massive YouTube video because I finally can. So last week, maybe it was 2 weeks ago now, I was invited to a special preview of the brand new Moana experience over at Epcot. So I was able to film in there. I had a sign of things saying I was not allowed to share anything until tomorrow. So tomorrow I will be able to share my video of the Moana experience. So make sure tomorrow you go check it out because it's going to be huge. Also, there's one person who obviously ignored the contract and probably had their friend lose their job because they uploaded the video that they were not supposed to upload. But I should be one of the first people to have this video uploaded. So make sure you go give it a like, give it a comment as soon as it goes live, because the higher number of views and the higher number of likes at the start really helps determine everything in the long run. I had popcorn earlier and I can feel a popcorn seed going like a kernel between my teeth. Okay. Also, tonight's episode is sponsored by It's All About the Mouse Travel Jazz Hands. It's not up here, but just pretend. Make sure you stop by it'sallaboutthemousetravel.com for all of your Disney travel needs. All their services are absolutely positively 100% free. So make sure you book with them for your next Disney vacation. Okay. Do I have a popcorn? No, I don't think that. Maybe. Nope, swallowed it. Okay. So before the thing, we did give you guys 3 options. So throw into the comments. We'll give you guys another 25 seconds to throw your vote in. But your 3 options for tonight are, we can do an Ask the Expert segment where you guys can ask me any question about anything and everything Disney. Number 2, we can go through and we can have it so what was the idea? Oh, continuing our Disney 100 series. Or number 3, go through and do an episode about a retired Disney attraction. Let's see what people are saying in the chat room. We have David said number 2. It's bothering me that I can't upload these things. Can I? No, I can put people in timeout, though. That's kind of exciting. No, don't put people in timeout. I don't want that. Retired attractions got 2. Retired attractions got 3. What happened to Facebook? I got hacked on Facebook, so I can't even. I've been trying to get on Facebook for 8 days now, and yes, it's ridiculous. It's not mirrored on your side. Oh, that's exciting. Okay. Controversial opinion: Universal popcorn is better than Disney. So I can put people in timeouts, right? Wait a minute. Retired attractions, retired attractions, retired attractions. Okay, retired attractions is going to be our winner. Okay, but let's figure out what retired attraction you guys want to do. Let's give you guys three options. Last time we did 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, which was a very fun episode to do. How about we can go either Studio Backlot Tour. We'll give you three options. So don't vote until after you hear all three options. Studio Backlot Tour. We could do. Now I'm drawing like the biggest blank. Great Movie Ride. Or let's throw another. What? I'm kind of thinking like a Fantasyland ride. Like let's. What's the last one that we could throw out there? Let's do how about this is like the whole episode is me just trying to figure it out. Snow White Scary Adventure. I like Snow White Scary Adventure. Let's do Snow White Scary Adventure as well. So those are your three options. We're going to give you guys 45 seconds to throw your votes in. So either Great Movie Ride, Snow White Scary Adventure, or Studio Backlot Tour. Throw your question or your vote into the thing below. We got one for Snow White Scary Adventure, Great Movie Ride, Snow White Scary Adventure, Backlot Tour, Snow White Scary Adventure, Snow White Scary Adventure, Backlot Tour, Great Movie Ride, Backlot Tour. Oh my gosh, we're gonna have to go back and throw. By the way, I kind of like this because there's a lot more of you guys are actually talking in the chat room when we're just here on Face or on YouTube. I kind of like that. Okay, whoa. So we're gonna have to do a. Okay, we got Snow White. I need to write this down because you guys are all throwing the chats. This is throwing me off tonight. Holy cow. Okay. So we got Snow White, Backlot, and the other. What was the other? I can't think of the other. A Great Movie Ride. Okay, so we got one for Snow White, one for Great Movie Ride, Snow White, Backlot Tour, Snow White for sure. Backlot Tour, Great Movie Ride, Backlot Tour, Great Movie Ride. Oh, Snow White was your suggestion, but you're saying Backlot Tour. Okay, so we got 4 for Backlot Tour. And your first vote for Snow White doesn't count. Okay, so Backlot Tour it is. Holy cow. All right, we're going to do an episode about the Studio Backlot Tour today. Why can't I see everyone else? Can you not see everyone else's things? Here, can we do pop out? Oh, wait a minute. What's going on here? It just pops this. Wait a minute. I don't. No. Restore chat. Oh, no. Restore chat. Restore. Okay. This whole thing is very confusing for me. So I apologize in advance that I'm probably going to be very confused on what we're doing. All right, so tonight we're going to be doing an episode all about the Studio Backlot Tour. Now, let's do a history segment about the Studio Backlot Tour and how the Studio Backlot Tour actually became the Studio Backlot Tour. Also, you can see all the comments on your live chat. Okay, that's what was my main concern right there. Here, let's put down. Hi, can you guys see that one on there too? Oh, it was sorted by top comments, and you had to do all comments. Okay, that's okay. So let's do a history about how the Studio Backlot Tour actually started, and then we'll kind of go into the history of the Studio Backlot Tour, what it was. We'll do a walkthrough of what is popping up in my brain, and then we'll kind of continue from there. So the Studio Backlot Tour was a original idea. Actually, it goes all the way back to the 1940s. So way back in the 1940s, places like Universal were doing actual backlot tours where people could go on to their soundstage and get tours of the different studios. Now, this was actually a very common thing in old Hollywood. You could go to Paramount, you could go to MGM, you could go to so many different things throughout different companies, and they would actually be able to give you a personalized tour, walking through and see the thing. Matt's comment just won my whole day, but I can't post people's thing on there. He just says Universal sucks. So while while all these different places were going through and creating these things, in 1938, Walt Disney would go through and he would actually have it so it was right after Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs debuted in theaters, and right after Snow White and the Studios, Snow White at the Studios, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs would debut in theaters. They made so much money that Walt decided he was going to build a brand new studio. So when they built this brand new studio, a lot of different people were going through and they were saying, Walt Disney, hello, how you doing, sir? We want to have it so we can get a personal tour of your studio. And Walt said, yeah, maybe. So what he started to do was he actually had a few different people who started to come in, but then the requests kept on coming and coming and coming to the point where finally he said, no, we're not going to do any tours of the studio ever. Like, this is just way too chaotic. We're having way too people make this request. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through and we're going to bring everyone in the entire world who can afford it to go on a personal tour of the studios. And in order to do this, he had to make a brand new film. Now, this is a film that most people just don't even know exists. However, if you can go onto Disney Plus, I'm telling you right now, it exists. And it's a great film. It's called The Reluctant Dragon. Now, The Reluctant Dragon was made specifically because so many people were going through and asking Walt Disney for personal tours of the studios, or just a tour of the studio, because everyone wanted to go see where all of these different Disney movies were being made. So in response to this, he said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to make our own movie. People can go to the movie theater and they can actually watch an entire studio tour unfold, and people can figure out exactly how these different animated films were created. So they have it so they, get access to some big celebrity names, and these big celebrity names pretty much find a book called The Reluctant Dragon, and they think it would be the perfect story that Walt Disney could turn into a feature film. So they go over to the studio to go find Walt Disney to pitch the idea to him. And while this guy is going through the entire studio, he learns how different sounds are made, how different voices are created. He sees Clarence Ducky Nash, the original voice of Donald Duck. He does some impersonations for him. And then he goes through the ink and paint department. He goes through the animation department. He goes through every single type of department that can be possible until eventually we see the final product, which is a short film, not a full-length feature film, but it technically is a full-length feature film with a short film, but the short film is supposed to be besides the point. So pretty much it is this thing. It's called The Reluctant Dragon. Now, when The Reluctant Dragon came out, it was a pretty popular film, although most people today don't really remember it, mainly because it was supposed to be just like a one-time special thing because of all the requests people were getting to go out and actually film or go to the studio and actually see how everything's created. So when all this different stuff is going on, at the same time, Walt starts coming up with brand new ideas for the future of Disney. Now, at this point, we have animated films. We are just starting to kind of touch into the live action films, but Walt Disney has his idea of something a little bit bigger. And that is not Disneyland, but an area called the Mickey Mouse theme park. Now, with the Mickey Mouse theme park, it was actually going to be placed on the Disney studio lot. And one of the things was going to be kind of like how they have at Universal. We're going to actually do a tour of the studio, and you can actually see different sets and different things being filmed. Pretty cool idea. But that idea never came to being, and then eventually it morphed into the idea of Disneyland, which would open up nowhere close to where the actual studio was. Now, when all this different stuff was going on, the idea of a studio tour kind of fell by the wayside. No one ever really thought about it until the mid-1980s. Now, in 1984, two new people came into the Disney company. One was Michael Eisner. The other one was Frank Wells. Michael Eisner and Frank Wells were a team to reckon with. Now, one of the things that they both pretty much knew like the back of their hand was movies. They both came with a background of different movies and how movies were made, and they knew movies. They weren't really sure how theme parks operated. So what they did was something that hadn't really happened since Walt Disney was alive, and they let the Imagineers go crazy. So all the Imagineers kind of had free reign to do pretty much whatever they want, but they would, of course, have to get some approval from Michael Eisner and Frank Wells to make sure these things would actually come to be. Now, while they were going through in the 1980s, Epcot was just a few years old at this point, and Michael Eisner was sitting in with Imagineering talking about the future of Epcot and different ideas that they had. And one of the ideas that he wanted to pitch to them was the idea of having a entire pavilion inside of Epcot that focused on how movies are made. He said, you know what? It's our foundation. Everyone knows that movies are the heart and soul of Disney. It's the foundation of Disney. It's how the whole company started. Maybe we should have an entire pavilion that is featured around movies. And this is how things are created and blah, 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 blah. So the Imagineers got together. They came up with an amazing idea for an attraction. And when they came up with this amazing idea of an attraction, Michael Eisner said, you know what? You can do a little bit more than what you have right here. Of course, the attraction would become the Great Movie Ride. But we're still not at the Studio Backlot Tour. Just hold on for a second. We're going to get there in just a few minutes. So they came up with the idea of the Great Movie Ride inside of a pavilion. Originally, the idea of this pavilion was it was going to be placed in between the Imagination Pavilion and the Land Pavilion. Of course, the pavilion never came to be, but we're getting there. We're going to explain why it did not get there. So he said, we need a little bit more than this attraction, because when you go into the Imagination Pavilion, you've got a few different things. You've got a 3D movie with Michael Jackson, Captain EO. You've got the actual attraction, and then you've got the ImageWorks area as well, where people can go through, and they can go through the cool little rainbow tunnel. Remember the rainbow tunnel back in the 1980s and 1990s? So you've got a bunch of different things there. Over at the Seas Pavilion, you've got a actual ride, and then you also have an actual aquarium, and then you also have all these other cool little exhibits around. Over at the Land Pavilion, we had things like Kitchen Cabaret at that point. We had Listen to the Land, and we also had Symbiosis, along with two different things. All of these different things are in the same spot where the Great Movie Ride / Movie Pavilion was going to be, and we need to have it so we can kind of step this up a little bit. So he says, think a little bit bigger than just this Great Movie Ride attraction. So they kind of start coming up with these different ideas, and while they start to come up with these different ideas, the Imagineers, along with Michael Eisner, are going through and talking about it, and they kind of come up to the idea of, you know what, this is a great idea for a theme park. So maybe we can actually take this basic model here and turn it into a massive theme park. Maybe not massive is the word, but they can turn it into a theme park, and the entire theme park can be based around the idea of making movies. So when they came up with this idea, they started to work on Disney MGM Studios. Of course, they would have to go through and get some film rights from MGM, because a lot of the live action Disney films at the time didn't really exist. So in order for us to go through and create these different attractions, we wouldn't go through. By the way, I know that we're not doing a Great Movie Ride episode tonight. We're doing Studio Backlot Tour. We're going to get there, though. So just stick with me. We're slowly making our way through the history here. Also, I don't remember who it was last week. Last week, I was like concerned because no one was typing. And then one person's like, I'm just sitting here in shock that you can remember all this junk. My parents are too, because I did terrible in school. But that's not what we're talking about at all. So when they would go through and they started to work on actual Disney's Hollywood Studios, they came up with 3 different attractions. One of them would be the Great Movie Ride, that signature attraction they had talked about when they first were working on the idea of a movie pavilion. Number 2, the heart and soul of the company, animation. They decided to have it so there was going to be a 2-hour tour, where guests would actually be able to go through and learn how animation's done. They would have a special walkthrough area and so much more over there. And then on top of that, they would go through and have it so they would come up with a third idea, which would be the granddaddy of them all, because you could actually have it so you could go through and watch how movies are made. And that would be at the Studio Backlot Tour. Now, the Studio Backlot Tour originally opened up with the park on May 1st, 1989, and would go for almost 30 years, but it just fell a little shy. So when we would start to go through and create this brand new attraction, they wanted to have it so there was going to be several different things inside this attraction that would kind of be, a massive story. Now, this is one of those things when you go through and talk to people who are fans of the Studio Backlot Tour, at the end of when it existed, they don't really realize what it was at the beginning of its existence. Because Toy Story Midway Mania, Walt Disney, One Man's Dream, those 2 buildings actually used to be part of the Studio Backlot Tour. Like, to the point where the Studio Backlot Tour was a multi-hour tour. It was a full tour with different bathroom stops along the way in case you had to go. So let's talk a little bit about what the Studio Backlot Tour was all about, because it did evolve throughout the years. but we're going to talk a little bit about what it was at the end, but at the same time, we'll talk a bit about what it was at the beginning too. So the Studio Backlot Tour still started off the exact same way that it did at the very end of the attraction, which is you waiting in a line. So when you would go through and you would wait in this line, you would have your first glimpse at what this tour was going to be all about. On our left-hand side, we would have it so there was this massive tram vehicle that had crashed through the wall, kind of indicating that you, the guest, were being thrown right into the middle of the action. It's just that simple. So when you would go through the next section, going up to the first area, which is going to be the special effects department, you would be able to go through and see several different props from actual movies that were worked on, some of them Disney, some of them not. The ones that were at the end there were mainly focused on Michael Bay films like Armageddon, Pearl Harbor, a lot of Pearl Harbor. But prior to that, they did have a lot of different things from MGM films as well, so you could go through and learn about that. Then in the next section you would go through, it would be the special effects area. Now, the special effects area was one of the greatest areas in the entire park, in my personal opinion, because it allowed you, the guest, to be put right into the middle of the action. In fact, I was an extra on the Studio Backlot Tour multiple times throughout the years, mainly because I just absolutely loved it. I thought it was so much fun to be put right in the middle of the action. Plus, if it was a hot day out, you wanted to be an extra because you got doused in water. So how this actually worked was they would choose for a guest in the line. It was usually like the front people. If you were like me, you would go up to the cast member and say, hey, can I volunteer for the thing? They would say yes, and they would take you to a secret entrance backstage. And when you would go through that backstage area, let's talk a little bit about it. You would be off to the right-hand side of where the actual guests would enter into the area. You'd go up some stairs. There was like this little box that was over there, like a box. It was like pretty much the size of the area that I broadcast from. So you would go in there. There would be a bunch of different shelves there. And then while you had the different shelves there, you would actually put on these giant waterproof pants and waterproof jacket that had a hood on top, and then also massive boots to help keep all of your actual day-to-day clothes dry. You would go in there, and then they would actually go out and have it so they would introduce you to the audience. Now, before they would go through and introduce you to the audience, what they would actually do is they would have it so there was an opportunity for the guests to believe that what was being filmed right now was going to be put into an actual movie. And this is my favorite part. So at the end, they would have Michael Bay there, and he's like, I'm Michael Bay. And this is exactly how he talked in the film, too. Hello, I'm Michael Bay. You may know me from several pictures that I've done throughout the years, including things like Pearl Harbor. In Pearl Harbor, we take a look at the actual attacks that happened on Pearl Harbor back on December 7th, 1941. Now, in order to get the actual visualization of how these actually things worked, we would cast extras and different people with a special effects department to have it so they would go through and put people into the real life situation that would happen to make things seem more realistic about those attacks back in the 1940s. Now, what you're going to see today is we're actually filming another one of those segments. And while we're filming one of those segments, we're going to have some guest from you in the park join us on stage. And this is how we talked the whole time. I'm not even joking. That's how he talked the whole time. So he would go through, and what they would say is, we've already filmed parts of the movie. We're going to interlock these scenes into the movie, and then we're going to kind of put it all together. So there were 4 different parts at the very end of the Studio Backlot Tour. One of them would be the engineer who was downstairs, and he would get flooded by a torpedo. And then the other 3 were 3 deckhands that were up at the top. Honestly, I loved being a deckhand just because I like to ham it up. But all 4 positions were great. There's 4 positions, 2 deckhands, 1 captain, and then the other guy. But the 3 people, 2 deckhands and the captain, were all together up on the top deck. So what they would do is they would have it so first off, they would go through and film the one person scene who was in a box, and they would have it so all this water would wash down on them as they're answering the phone and talking about how we're getting water taken in, blah, 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 blah. And then they would cut to the top part, and the top part was the other 3, and they would have binoculars looking around. They would see things. They'd start running around, flailing their arms because they were about to die. And then they would cut those 2 scenes together to have it so while they're going through, it's the deckhands up on the top. Everything seems happy-go-lucky. And then all of a sudden, they see the things, the planes coming up. They have their binoculars looking around. And then all of a sudden, they drop some torpedoes, and the torpedo hits the side of the ship, and then it cuts to the guy that's inside the building, and he's got all the water coming down, saying, "We're taking on water." Then it goes to the captain, who's like, "Hey, what's going on?" And then it would allow those 4 guests to go back and be reunited with their loved ones. Okay, so that was the special effects portion of the thing. We were 30 minutes into this episode, and we're like barely even scratching the surface. So keep on, if you're not subscribed, make sure you subscribe. So we go into extra innings tonight, or if you know someone who wants to subscribe, send them over to subscribe as well. So we go into extra innings tonight. So while you go through here, and I just saw the questions. Yes, so you've done this before. Awesome. Yes, I have done this before. I must have done this at least, I would say I would be shocked if it was less than 40 times. Like I did the regular ride hundreds of times, but I did, the extras. I would do at least, I would say at least once a month, if not every other month, after I moved down here until when it closed. So I was on it quite often. Actually, there was times where I would go to the park with like coworkers and stuff. I'm like, "Hey, you want to go on, be an extra today?" And most of them would say no. And we're like, "Well, you're doing it anyways." And then we would go, and we'd always have fun. So after you would go through that area, you would go downstairs. You'd see this massive multicolored house. And that massive multicolored house would give you an indication that you were about to see something special. Because if you know anything about Disney movies, you know exactly what that multicolored house was. It's actually a chicken coop. And it's not just any chicken coop. It's the actual chicken coop that was used in Hannah Montana, the movie. That's right. It's the best of both worlds, people. So when you got into this area, everything that you would see from here on out would be actual real life props from actual real life Disney movies. And you are lucky because I have an insane memory and I remember what most of the things are. So right now we're going to go through and we're going to take a walk through this little hallway because we go down, 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 and then just down a little bit more until we exit the building. So let's talk a little bit about some of the props that we can find in this area. We obviously aren't going to do every single one of them because if we did every one of them, we would be here for hours. But let's go into it. So first off, when you would first walk in, on the right-hand side / kind of behind you, there was all these different pictures here. All these different pictures were from several different Disney films, along with some MGM films as well. Because when the area first opened up, there were not a lot of there were not a lot of Disney live action films. There were some, but there weren't a ton. But there were enough MGM things to kind of throw it together in the props department. So when you would continue going through in this area, on the right-hand side, we would have lots of different things like Dalmatians. The Dalmatians were little side or things that they would actually put into scenes with Glenn Close in the original 101 Dalmatians live-action remake from 1996. On our left-hand side, across from that, we would actually see a lot of different tables, a lot of different things. They would go through and have it so there would actually be these massive desks or chairs or what have you, and these were all from Santa's Workshop from the Santa Claus series. While you continue going down that path, on the right-hand side, you would continue to see more props from things like the movie Splash, and then something called the lottery ticket. We're going to get to the lottery ticket in just a little bit longer because we've got a cooler thing at the very end. If you continue going down straight ahead, you would have one of my favorite things. Up on the 4th shelf, there was going to be there was a few different props. One of them was a little dog that looked like a bulldog. This was actually the actual facade of the diner from the movie The Rocketeer. To the right of it was one of the jetpacks that was actually used in the movie The Rocketeer. To the right of that was yet again another one of the helmets from The Rocketeer. And then to the right of that was another helmet from The Rocketeer. And to the right of that was another jetpack from, you guessed it, The Rocketeer. I love The Rocketeer, so hey. When you went around the corner, you would see giant shoelaces. These giant shoelaces were used in the movie Honey, I Blew Up the Kid. As you would continue going down, you would see more props from the Santa Claus films, Santa Claus 3 to be exact. On the right-hand side, we would see a few more things that were on or from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids areas. And then if you got to the end of that hallway, if you took a look up, you could see several different things, including a winged man along with a hot air balloon. I was like, what's the thing called? A hot air balloon. And then you would see some audio animatronic figures in there. So this would actually show you that this was a constant evolving thing that focused not just on the movies, but also on other things that Disney would do. For instance, these were all from the original attraction called World of Motion, which sat over where Test Track currently sits, and it closed up in the mid 1990s. So you would actually have a few of the actual animatronics up there, along with some of the chickens up there as well. And then you would go down the hallway. There'd be some more stuff from all these different movies. But dead ahead of you would be a massive train car. And this is the one that I want to talk about because I don't think people really acknowledged it enough throughout the years, because it was from a movie called The Lottery Ticket. Now, The Lottery Ticket might seem like an odd film because maybe you've never seen it before, maybe you've never heard of it before. It starred Bette Midler, and it was kind of a short film. Like, it was like one of those films that was like maybe 15 minutes long, maybe 12 minutes long. I want to say 12 minutes long. I could be wrong. And if you've ever watched it, you were probably like, it's kind of a weird movie to have it so you have a big star in it, and there's a lot of hype around who's in this movie, but it doesn't seem like it would be a movie that would be made for the big screen. It just doesn't. It's just that simple. But let's talk a little bit why. Why was it there? Why was this giant subway car there? Why did we have other props from it earlier down the hallway? Well, it's because the Lottery Ticket was made specifically for the studio backlot tour. Not only was it made specifically for the studio backlot tour, it was actually made completely inside of Disney MGM Studios right before the park actually opened up. Now, they wanted to have it so the studio backlot tour / Disney MGM Studios / everything in this park would be things that would focus solely on the idea of making movies. And they wanted to have it so they would actually be making movies inside of that area. But for them to actually make the movies inside that area, it just wasn't feasible enough for them to actually be able to pull it off. So what they had to do was they had to make a movie inside the park to show how movies are made by saying, yeah, like this is what we've done here inside of Disney MGM Studios, and this is why everything works. So what they decided to do was they're going to film a movie called The Lottery Ticket, and they're going to have it so it was a big production. Like they were actually going to put a lot of money into this film, even though it was a 12-minute film. And then they were going to have it so you would see it only ever in your life there at Disney MGM Studios to show how all the movie process was going to be made. But when they would actually show it to the guests, they would act like it was a big film that was actually shown in theaters. In reality, it never was shown in theaters. It was only filmed and shown here at Disney's or Disney MGM Studios, not now Disney's Hollywood Studios. If you look it up on YouTube, you can find it on YouTube. If you ever like really miss old Disney MGM Studios and you want to see like the studio back, or not the studio backlot tour, but if you want to see things like the old Streets of America, you can go on there and it's like, whoa, it takes you back in time. It's really, really cool. But that's why that's there. We're going to talk a little bit more about it as we continue going on to our tour, but we're not at that part yet. So we'll get there in just a little bit. So right after that, you exit out of the building. On the left-hand side, we also had two more props from the Rocketeer from the South Seas Club. Both of them I always liked too. It was like the dolphin and the mermaid. After that, you would actually board the trams. And all of a sudden, I just had a huge flashback. When I first moved down here back in 2010, I was waiting for the tram one time, and I was talking to a person about this book right here, about From Screen to Theme. And I said, oh, well, you guys probably could have seen that the whole time. Yo, yeah, you can. Haha. I was showing you just the bookshelf. But yeah, they had it so they would go, I was talking to the person. I was like, oh, yeah, I wrote a book. It's called From Screen to Theme, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, oh, okay. And then I had like the book with me. And he's like, oh, that's actually an actual book. I don't know why I just thought about that, but I just thought about that. So after you would get on to... Yes, school could have been so much easier. Yes. After you would go through and you would actually get onto the tram, you would go down. Now, let's talk a little bit about what it was at the end, and then a little bit about what it was later on as well. Hey, Julian. So when you would go through, by the way, it's very weird that I can't go through and put people's things on the thing. That's the only thing I don't really like about this version of it. And you guys said this is actually reading the right way for you, right? It's just me that it's opposite. It's a mirrored version for me, but for you guys, apparently it's not. So anyways, so when you would actually hop on to the studio backlot tour at Disney's Highway Studios, you would go through, and the first thing you do is you'd go down a hallway, or not a hallway, but you would go down a street. On the left hand side of the street, at the end of time, would be the stunt area for lights, motors, action. Prior to that, it would be a graveyard. And when I say a graveyard, I mean it was a lot of different things going through, and it was just like a bunch of old props. They call it a movie graveyard, just, featured all these different things. So while you're going through this graveyard, eventually you would get down to the horticulture area. And now the horticulture area here was mainly focused on the plants at Disney's Hollywood Studios. We also had a horticulture area behind Animal Kingdom, which we talked a lot about last week. But you would actually see one of the horticulture areas there. And then right in front of you, you would also have the Earful Tower. Now, in the old backlot tour, you would actually have it so at one point you would get off around this area and they would go through a making of movies with you. They would kind of go through the editing process. They would go through more special effects. They would have another section where they would actually take you, the guest, out of the area and they would put you once again into the middle of a movie. Now, this would also be the area where they would say, okay, we're going to show you a movie that was completely filmed right here at Disney MGM Studios. Yay! And then they would play the lottery ticket for you. And you'd be like, whoa, that's how movies are made. That's fascinating. And everyone would cheer. And then they would say, okay, now who wants to see our props department? So you would get back on and you would get to the props department. Now, the props department is an area that we still see and know and love. Well, not today anymore. We're talking about retired attractions, but you could still see it and love it and know it all the way up until the very final days. You would go through a tunnel. On the left-hand side of the tunnel, you would see the actual working dress area for Disney. Now, this area, I actually had a friend who worked at this area for years. She was able to get me backstage in this area one time with her manager. It was fascinating. Like, I've never been a costume person, but it was actually absolutely fascinating going through and hearing about the process of everything that was going on in that room. So when you would go through this at the end, they would have it so they're going through and making different outfits for characters like Mickey Mouse. They would have Belle and what have you. Every single costume that was being made, because you would actually see people in there making the costumes, every single one of those costumes was actually being created specifically for different people in the parks. Now, what happened eventually at the very end was those costumers in there were not making costumes for everyday cast members, but for any production that you would see anywhere in Walt Disney World. That's where those costumes were actually being made. So, for instance, let's say when it comes to Walt Disney World's 50th anniversary, Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse and Donald and Goofy and all of them got brand new outfits. When they got those brand new outfits, they would have been created in a place like that. That place still exists today. It just doesn't exist at Disney's Hollywood Studios. Now it exists over at over by ESPN Wide World of Sports. If you ever go down that road and you pass Wide World of Sports on the right hand side, and then a little bit further down, you'll see like this building out there, and it just looks like a giant warehouse. In reality, that's where those people all got moved to, and that's where they actually make the costumes for around the parks. Still to this day. Let me get a drink real quick here. Okay, so you would go through the costuming department. In addition to the costumes there, they would also have different costumes from actual movies as well. And because some of those actually were made there as well. Now, Disney has filmed movies not inside of Disney MGM Studios exactly, but in the area around Orlando or around the state of Florida or Georgia. And those costumes would not go to the Walt Disney Archives. A lot of them would just come to Disney MGM Studios and be showcased there instead. So those were actual props that you would actually see while going through that area. After that, you would go through the special effects area, which was, or not the special effects area, a prop house. And the prop house there was a really cool area. And it featured a lot of different things that were actually filmed with Disney. Some of them were for commercials for Walt Disney World. Some of them were for bigger production things like different movies or different TV shows and different things like that. Because right on the other side of that wall, we actually had an actual working studio for quite a while. This would be the area where now when you're exiting out of Toy Story Mania / Toy Story Mania, that whole area at one point was an actual working studio. If you remember Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, play it. great attraction. That was actually located where Toy Story Midway Mania currently sits. On the right hand side of that would be, or I'm sorry, the left hand side when you're facing towards the entrance of the building when it used to be there. On the left hand side used to be a massive warehouse that would feature, or it would, kind of go through. It was kind of considered a swing set in the idea that they could swing out different sets to fit different needs. So if you've ever watched the show Home Improvement, some episodes of Home Improvement were filmed there specifically so they could showcase it to people at Disney's Hollywood Studios on how TV shows were made as well. So when they say film before a live studio audience, sometimes the live studio audience might have actually been in the state of Florida. That was not the only TV show that was filmed there. There were several other ones that were filmed there. But Home Improvement, I think, was the one that had the most filmings there. I don't know how many. It could have been like 5, but it was still, they had a few episodes that were filmed there throughout the years. So after you would go past that area, you would go further backstage away from where the park actually was. Now, while you're going back to this area, you would go past another graveyard. Now, this graveyard would feature several different props from different Disney films, things like Flight of the Navigator. If you've ever watched some of my YouTube shorts, you probably know about the Flight of the Navigator spaceship that can still be found in Tomorrowland today over at Magic Kingdom. But in addition to the spaceship from Flight of the Navigator that can be found in Tomorrowland today, you could also find another one of the spaceships from Flight of the Navigator in this backyard graveyard. In addition to that graveyard, we also had characters like Herbie the Love Bug from Herbie Goes Bananas. We also had Herbie the Love Bug from Herbie Rides Again. We also had Herbie the Love Bug from Herbie Fully Loaded. There were 3 different Herbie the Love Bugs that were actually used in the films back there. On top of that, we did have some of the different props from the movie Pearl Harbor, because like I said, at the start we had Michael Bay. Hello, I'm Michael Bay. You may surprise you. This is how he taught the whole time. It bothered me so bad. Hey, my name's Michael Bay. And he kind of thought like he knew everything that was going on. And he did. But still. Then after that, we would go through, I ride the teacups. That's a good idea. Actually, I rode the teacups today. Where were we going with this? Then you eventually make your way to Catastrophe Canyon. Now, Catastrophe Canyon was supposed to have it so it would actually be a real live working set that put you, the guest, into the middle of the action. Let's talk about some really cool details about Catastrophe Canyon. First off, you would get in there. They'd say, oh, you're in luck. Today we're actually going to be filming an actual series or an actual scene from an upcoming film. And you'll be able to see it in the theater someday. That's a lie, but that's besides the point. So you would go inside of Catastrophe Canyon. You would go into this thing, and it was just kind of, you had this protection over you, so you knew everything was going to be okay. Like there was nothing wrong with this thing. But you had an oil tanker there. It was from the Mojave Oil Company, and then there was just some oil rigs and different things like that. Let's first talk about the Mojave Oil Company, because the Mojave Oil Company is not a real oil company, but it has been used in a few different Disney films, but it actually originated here at Disney MGM Studios. So they created this oil tanker to fit in with the idea of a future movie, and then this took off like crazy. Does anyone in the chat room know? I'm going to see if anyone knows the answer to this. Where else in Walt Disney World, which is also a retired attraction, where else in Walt Disney World you could also find cans of Mojave Oil Company oil? You guys actually used to be able to find, I think it was 6 of them. 5 of them. There's 5 of them. Not Dinoland. Dinoland's a great guess, though. Not Cars Land. Another great guess, though. It is a retired attraction at Primeval World. Oh, that's a good guess as well, but that is not correct. Not Test Track. It is a retired attraction. It no longer exists. If you want a hint, Now World of Motion, another great guess. I will give you a guess, or I'll give you a hint. Think Magic Kingdom, which is probably going to throw everyone off. But think Magic Kingdom. It was found over at Magic Kingdom in an attraction, not Small World. Again, it was a retired attraction. Not Mr. Toads. Now we're getting closer. The 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea is close to it too. Not Snow White's Scary Adventure. We'll even go even further. It's a retired land at Magic Kingdom. There's only one retired land. Well, I guess it had 3 different names throughout the years, but not Adventures Through Inner Space. It wasn't Toontown. Yes, it wasn't Mickey's Toontown Fair. So it's either the Barnstormer, Mickey's House, Minnie's House, or Donald's Boat. It's one of those 4 places. Let's see if anyone can make the right guess here. It's one of those 4 things. And Barnstormer still exists, so it was in Mickey's garage. There we go. Shelly got it. It was inside of Mickey's garage. You would actually be able to find 5 cans of the Mojave Oil Company oil. So very cool. Good job. So after you would go through, they would have it so there would be an explosion, some fire, then there would be a mass flood, and the flood would be coming down over the hills. And then because it just makes sense that, they want to put you in the middle of the action, then they would like flood the area. So if you were on the left-hand side of the tram, there was a chance that you were going to get very, very wet. After that, you would go around and you would actually be able to see the backside of the area. So you could actually see how this entire area was created. And then you would make your way back around. Now, at one point after you would go through this, you would go down Residential Street. Residential Street would be replaced by Lights, Motors, Action. But before it was replaced by Lights, Motors, Action, it featured several different houses that would actually be used throughout the years for different Disney/non-Disney television series. If you've ever watched the movie Ernest Scared Stupid, parts of it were filmed at Disney MGM Studios. Not the whole thing, but some parts were filmed there, including the exterior of Ernest's house from the movie Ernest Scared Stupid. You used to pack Lunchables in my backpack for the backlot tour. And then as you would go through on your left-hand side, you would have the Golden Girls house. On the right-hand side, you would have Ernest's house. The Brady Bunch house replica was there. It was not the actual one that was created for the film. But you would go through, there was about 6 or 7 houses that were there. All of them were supposed to represent different famous houses from television. And like I said, some of them were actually used. So if you ever watched things like Golden Girls, some episodes of Golden Girls, it might have been that exterior of the house to kind of give the idea of this is a nice, fancy place to live, or whatever they needed. So if they needed snow, they would add snow. If they needed, rain, they would add rain, everything else like that. In addition to that, we did have, Matt actually just put it down, Walt's Plane, the Mouse, MM0237, aka the Mouse, and it would feature Mickey Mouse on the side. This was actually Walt Disney's personal plane that would fly over Walt Disney World back in the 1960s. It was Walt to try to figure out the perfect location for where Walt Disney World would go. Eventually, it would land on World Drive, the main stretch that goes between the entrance of Walt Disney World, the main entrance, the original entrance of Walt Disney World, and all the way down to the Magic Kingdom, to the parking lot. That's where the plane would land, and then it was escorted there to its new home, and it lived there for years and years and years until eventually the Studio Backlot Tour disappeared. After you would go through Residential Street, you would circle around over by the Streets of America. You would go past yet another boneyard until eventually you made your way to the end of the attraction, which at the end was the AFI exhibit, which would feature different 100-year whatever. So sometimes it was 100-year films, 100 celebration of villains, 100 special whatever. So they had it so you could go in, you could actually see real life props from so many different things. Red Hot Tamale 91, you are definitely lagging. You're falling behind right now. Refresh. So eventually what would happen is the Studio Backlot Tour would be announced to be one of the things that would be disappearing to make way for Star Wars Galaxy's Edge / Toy Story Land. So when you would actually go to Galaxy's Edge and Toy Story Land, still to this day, you would actually have it so you are currently standing on actual property that the Studio Backlot Tour once existed on. However, I do miss it. I do love the new lands, but I do miss it. When you're going through Toy Story Land, still to this day, if you're going down the main stretch, that is actually going to be the exact same walkway that you would be going through in the tunnel for most of it. From like the front of Toy Story Mania to Andy's lunchbox or Woody's lunchbox, that would be the tunnel area that you would go through, which the costume department once sat at. Over by Slinky Dog Dash, that would be the location where, one, it used to be the horticulture area, and two, it also used to be the area where the stuntmen used to perform for Lights Motors Action. Over by Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, that would be where Catastrophe Canyon sat, and so many other things as well. So let's go to you guys. Do you guys have any questions about Studio Backlot Tour? That was a long. How do I remember these things? I do not know, but I remember them extremely well. I just remember Judge Doom's Steamroller was on display. Yes, there are so many really cool things. Oh, you know what? I should put down Red Hot Tamale 91. You should refresh to catch up. There we go. Okay, out there, does anyone have any questions? Yeah, they had the bone cage. Yeah, remember the bone cages were there for Pirates of the Caribbean? From Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest. Lots of really cool things. We'll go into 5 minutes of extra innings, or we'll see. Let's see if we got any new subscribers here today. You did. We got at least one new subscriber, so we'll give you guys 5 extra minutes of questions. Yay! Where did the props go? Okay, that's a good question. So some of the props made their way over to the Walt Disney Archives in not Disneyland, but over in California. There is also a smaller Walt Disney Archives here in Walt Disney World area. The location is secret, so although I think I know where it's at. But so a lot of those things were kept in some capacity. A lot of things were stored up and kept forever. I want to say, from what I've heard, is that there was one tram that was kept for quite a few years at the backstage area for cast member parking, for like the high executive parking. So even if you were if you worked at Galaxy's Edge, it would be in a different parking lot than the one that you would actually go through. But yeah, so some of the props would go through and be kind of scattered throughout the park as well, but not as obvious, like the smaller ones. So for instance, I think there was 2 or 3 different things that were added over to the Studio Backlot Express over next to Star Tours, the restaurant over there. In addition to that, I want to say there was like 2 things that were added over to Muppet Vision 3D's queue area. And then I think everything else, if I remember correctly, I think it was everything else was shipped to either a secret location here or a secret location, or not a secret location. Everyone knows where the archives is, over in Walt Disney World. So yeah, a lot of the things were taken away. I'm sure that there were some things that were destroyed, but I think some of the big things like Herbie the Love Bug, the Pirates of the Caribbean bone cage, I think those things probably all stuck around and are still living a very happy life someplace where guests just aren't seeing them, unfortunately. Okay, keep on going through. Does anyone else out there have any questions about anything and everything about our Studio Backlot Tour? I love the Studio Backlot Tour. Like that was one of those that it just killed me. Is that Flight of the Navigator and Magic Kingdom cooling station? Yes. Yeah, so when you are at the cooling station over in Tomorrowland at Magic Kingdom, if you look at the top, there's a red ship. That red ship, it's got a spoiler added to it and stuff, but that red ship is actually a repainted ship from the original Flight of the Navigator. So Flight of the Navigator used 2 ships. The film was actually filmed in Florida, but it had 2 ships in there. Both of them were like the silver spaceships. and one of them made its way to the studio backlot tour. The other one was repainted red, given a spoiler, and placed there inside of Magic Kingdom. So when you're in Tomorrowland over at Magic Kingdom and you look up, that's an actual prop from the movie The Flight of the Navigator. So not bad. How come they have to replace the backlot galaxies both parts? How come they had to replace the backlot with Galaxy's? So the main reason they would have to put Galaxy's Edge where it was here and just need to go through and have it so this would be, they would need to have it so they had the room for it. If you would go any further back over at Disney's Hollywood Studios, you would end up on a massive road. So they had to replace it, unfortunately. So yeah. Brent, I apologize. Off topic question: are they trying vehicles? Wait, are the vehicles for Tron outside the ride or inside the line? Wait. Oh, the try vehicles, the vehicles that try out before. It's before the line, so or it's next to the line, but you don't have to go in line to try it out. So if you go up towards where the lightning lane load area is, it's a little bit before that. The try vehicles. Now I get it. I was very confused for a second there. Okay, anyone out there have any more questions about the studio backlot tour? If we get any more subscribers in the next few minutes too, we will continue a little bit further. Is there a tour that goes through costuming and such at Disneyland? Unfortunately, there is not. Sadly, I apologize if you said this already, but were you ever a volunteer to get wet at the beginning of the back? Yeah, you did miss that part. Yeah, I was. I would say at least 40 times. I'd be shocked if it was less than 40. I'd be shocked if it was less than 50. Honestly, I used to be that all the time. Actually, I want to say I volunteered when I was 17, and then they asked me if I was 18 years old, and I was like, yeah. Said, okay, come on in. Because that was like my dream. I was like, I just want to be one of these people. Yeah. So I used to, my favorite thing was if I was with someone was hamming it up and being at the top. But if it was a hot day and I was at the park by myself, I would volunteer just to have it so I could get doused with water at the top. Off topic, did you hear the news about the expansion of the Haunted Mansion queue at Disneyland? Yes, it sounds very, very cool. I'm very, very excited for that. I think that's going to be a very cool addition. They're also adding a Madame Leo's shop over there, which I think is pretty cool too. Did your clothes really get soaked, or does what they give you keep it dry? It got you. No, you were pretty wet underneath. I mean, like not soaked, but you would feel damp enough that it was like it was one of those that you didn't want to do on a colder day. Like if it was like a Florida winter, and it was like cool enough for someone who lives in Florida, it was not a very nice thing for you to go through. But overall, yeah, you would get wet, you wouldn't get soaked. On the really hot days, I would volunteer and I would open up my buttons a little bit just so I would get soaked. So, but yeah, overall, so much fun. I absolutely loved it. That was one of my favorite things that Disney. I just loved it. I love the studio backlot tour. I just think it was such a well done attraction, and I wish it would come back. So, okay, anyone else out there have any questions? We'll do another questions for the next another 2 minutes before we check again to see if we went up in subscribers and if we get more time here with the thingamajigger. If we go into extra innings. Also, if you're watching right now and you haven't liked the video, give the video a like. Every like helps. It helps boost us up. Right now, actually, I released a video earlier today, and I'm so bummed because it was a YouTube short. My YouTube short today, I thought it was going to go crazy, busy, but yeah. Did you ever do the backlot at Universal Hollywood? We all know how much you love that place. I never did. No, I've never been to Universal Hollywood, so I've only been to University or Universal Orlando. So, yes, I've never really. I think I went to the what's it called? City Walk. I went to their City Walk one time, and that is the only time that I've ever Been there. Universal Studios tour is no good. It's true. I think it'd be cool to see the Universal Studios tour just because I'm a huge Back to the Future fan. We love the Thingamajigger. I love the Thingamajigger too. All right, let's check our thing here. Did we get any extra subscribers here? Yeah, I did a YouTube short before I looked at the subscriber number. I did a YouTube short earlier. I thought I was going to go crazy viral. It got 165 views in the first 3 minutes, and then just stopped because like no one was liking it. So every like helps. When you guys like a video, it's really cool to kind of go through, and it helps out big time. Yeah, so up from there, it's only gone up like another 20 views. It's at 170 views right now. Okay, we are currently at still at 2,108 subscribers, but that's not bad at all. You know what we'll do? Let's do 3 more questions, and if we go up in subscribers in the time of those 3 questions, we'll take a few more. So anyone out there have any? We're going into extra ratings now. Doesn't necessarily have to be about the Studio Backlash tour, but anything Disney related. I'll throw those out there. Only good thing is Back to the Future and King Kong for Universal. We were talking about Universal the other day. I was talking to some people I work with about it, and they asked me if I've done it. I said, yeah, I have. I said I've gone over there. I went over there like 7 years ago. Honestly, it was the last time I went there. And I said I like the theming of the Harry Potter area. The rides I wasn't a big fan. I was like, yeah, they're okay. And then, yeah, where did the Osborne Lights go? They went to Dollywood for a while, and they also made their way to Give Kids the World Village here in Orlando as well. So they did go through, and they were repurposed. I like the idea of them being at Give Kids the World Village, though, because anything to help the kids out, I'm 100% on board. So I will gladly give up the Osborne Lights if the kids can go enjoy the Osborne Lights. How was the hurricane? The hurricane was non-existent. It rained here, and that was about it. It wasn't anything bad. It wasn't like a torrential downpour or anything. It wasn't even that windy. It was just, I don't know. It didn't seem like a hurricane at all. It just seemed like a Tuesday night / Wednesday morning. So pretty non-existent. And actually, I know some people who are in town right now, and I was talking to them today, and I said, how was the hurricane? And they said that was nothing. Like, that's what people were focused about. That's crazy. Did you start the Hocus Pocus house yet? Not yet. I'm actually still working on my previous one, which is the Disney Villains bookcase, or the books and DVDs and stuff, or not DVDs, VHS. So that's the one that I'm working on right now. That's the one that I want to finish before I was talking to someone the other day about this who also loves to build Legos, and we said we like to do one bag at a time, and just, whether it's one bag a day. Usually it's one bag a day on my days off, so which are Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So I'll probably do another one tonight. But yeah, I just slowly. The Disney Camera Lego set comes out on Friday. I know, and I need it. I really need it. I'm hoping I won't be able to get over to Lego until later in the day, so I'm hoping that it'll be around still later in the day for me to be able to get it. Did you try the new Rescue Rangers merchandise? I like it, but I'm not an ear person, or not like the headband ear person. So I did not get the headband. The backpacks are too small. I only use backpacks to carry. I love backpacks. I don't know why, but I do love backpacks. But I need a big backpack to carry all my camera equipment, my water bottles, my popcorn bucket, everything. I carry so much stuff with me every single day that the small backpacks, like those Lawn 5 backpacks, they're just too small for me. So I did not get either one of them. I have been collecting every single month. I've been doing the plush, though. So I was able to get the Oliver and Dodger plush from Oliver and Company. So overall, I think that's my favorite thing from the Disney 100 series, is going through and getting those plush every single month. They're just, I think, so the first one for the 1920s was Mickey, Minnie, and Steamboat Willie stuff. 30s was the Three Little Pigs. 40s was the Pegasus Horses. There's like 5 of them. From Fantasia, the 1950s was the Shaggy Dog. 1960s was Merlin and Mim as the dragon, as the mouse. The 70s was Bernard, Bianca, and Evan Rude from the Rescuers. And we all know how much I love the Rescuers. Oh. And then the 80s was now Oliver and Dodger. My guess for the 90s is I think we're going to get 2 sidekick characters. I'm not sure, I'm not sure which ones. I'm kind of thinking like Miko and Flit from Pocahontas, because all the characters have been known but obscure enough to make it interesting. So I'm kind of hoping that that's what we'll get. I could also see like I didn't even think about Goofy movie. Goofy movie would be a very real possibility. I think it would sell really well. I'm thinking for the 2010s, it'd be kind of cool to have like Cusco as a llama, and maybe Yzma as the cat. I had another idea the other day though, and I can't think of what it is right now. Oh, I was thinking Bolt, Mittens, and Rhino from the movie Bolt. I think would be pretty cool. And then for the 2010s, Pascal and Maximus would be pretty cool from Rapunzel, or from Tegel, I mean. Or there was another one that I suggested to my friend the other day, and I can't think of what it is. So we will see. I ate at Ohana last Friday. Absolutely fantastic. Hands down, best restaurant on property. Okay, let's see. Did you guys get any more subscribers? Or no? If you didn't, it's not the end of the world. I greatly appreciate. I hope you guys understand. I greatly appreciate every person out there who subscribed. I don't say thank you enough, so thank you. Any cruises on the horizon? I am desperately looking. I just have not booked. I really want to get one before 2 weeks from now when the silver anniversary ones stop. I just don't think it's going to happen. There's one that's actually fairly cheap that leaves in not tomorrow or 2 days Friday, but the Friday after. But I would need to find someone who'd be willing to go. So that's the tricky part, is finding people who'd be like, hey, yeah, we got to get this thing. Do the Hatbox goes to Pure yet? Every time I've gone on, it's still covered. It has not come up yet. It will be sometime in the near future. So yeah, he's not there. I know. I can't say it. I'm sorry. Never mind. I have been sworn to secrecy, and I'm going to keep that secrecy because I don't want to lose my privileges. Oh, so we're going to wrap up the show right there. We did not get any more subscribers, but we got one tonight. So thank you for whoever the new subscribers out there. Thank you so much. If you know anyone else who would like to subscribe, make sure you send them over this way. Also, as always, tonight's show is sponsored by It's All About the Mouse Travel Jazz Hands. It's still out there, but still. Make sure you join us, or make sure you book with It's All About the Mouse Travel for your next Disney vacation. All their services are absolutely, positively, 100% free. So make sure you book with them for your next Disney vacation. I'd like to thank everyone out there for joining us once again this week. Please come out and spread the word about the Wednesday show and from Stranger Theme, and invite anyone and everyone to subscribe right here on YouTube. Every new subscriber is amazing. Also, okay, before you go, this is what I'm thinking about. I've been thinking about this for a while now, and I want to throw this out here now to you guys because I think it's a good idea, but we also need to start as quickly as possible in order for us to pull this off. I'm getting closer to the numbers that I need to be at to get onto the press list for Disney, so I can get onto things like the cruises, like the new Disney Treasure coming out next year, and different things like that. So I can get different previews of these different things. Yes, and also don't forget to go like my short for the day. But in order to do that, my goal is to have it so I reapply for the press list once I hit 15,000 followers over on YouTube. Right now, we're about 2,600 and some away, 2,600 and some away. So if you know anyone who is not subscribed yet on YouTube, send them to YouTube. If you don't know anyone who's followed on Instagram, go share one of my posts and say, hey, go follow this guy. He's awesome. Or he's awesome, but, still help him out. So any help would be greatly appreciated. So keep on sending people over. and hopefully it will help us continue to grow our channel here and over on Instagram as well. So thank you everyone out there. I would greatly appreciate everyone. I've attempted to get on this media preview multiple times throughout the years with little effort, but they mainly say you need more likes and all that other stuff. So keep spreading the word, and hopefully we can grow immensely. But of course, as always, remember, everyone, have a great week, and we'll see you guys once again tomorrow. Or not tomorrow, YouTube video tomorrow. But have a great week, and remember, anything can happen if you let it. Until next time, have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye. Goodbye now. Goodbye. Bye-bye now. Goodbye. Goodbye now. Are they gone? Are they gone? Oh, good. My cheeks are just killing me. I just can't stand this kind of pressure. Jiminy Jill.